Okay, good morning to everybody. Welcome back. Last week there was no shiur, and we're starting now בעזרת השם ספר ויקרא. היינו ספר, it's more complicated because it's less interesting, let's say, because it's תורת הקורבנות, and we expect the midrashim to deal just with the details of the korbanot. But we'll see that we can find very interesting patterns in the midrash. So let's start. We'll start with the first midrash of the Sefer, Parashat Vayikra, dealing actually on the first pasuk. If you pay attention, so the first pasuk of Parashat Vayikra is related directly to the end of Parashat Vayikra Pkudei, actually, because at the end of the Parashat Pkudei, Moshe is ordered to put everything in place, and he puts Aaron in place, a menorah in place, a shulchan in place, everything, he sets it up. And then he expects the Shechina to dwell in the Mishkan, while the Shechina cannot dwell in the Mishkan because there is too much arafel, fog, that disturb Moshe from entering. Meaning that if Moshe does the most that human being can do, as he does exactly as he was ordered, and he does each and every detail of the Mishkan, even though from the other side of the contract, from HaKadosh Baruch Hu's side, HaKadosh Baruch Hu has to do less. I mean, he has to put himself less in order to enable human being to act. Because if HaKadosh Baruch Hu dwells entirely in the Mishkan, so Moshe cannot enter because Shachan alav ve'anan, because it's too full of fog, and it's too holy. That's why Moshe expects HaKadosh Baruch Hu to move away, and it's mamash like the creation, that Akamat Mishkan is very similar to the creation of the world. And a lot of sages argued, how is it possible that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that is melo kol haaretz kvodo, is full each and every centimeter in the world, how is it possible that he created the world? So there are two main answers to this question. One is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu made a tzimtzum. He narrowed himself, and he let a big void, a big halal, in which HaKadosh Baruch Hu ke'ilu doesn't exist, in order to enable the free choice, the creation of the world. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu does the same thing at the end of Parashat Pkudei. If he dwells, so it dwells entirely and doesn't let other people to do anything, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu melech kol haaretz kvodo. If you want to do something, you have HaKadosh Baruch Hu has to narrow himself, and then Vayikra el Moshe. And then we start with the first pasuk, Vayikra el Moshe, Vayidaber Hashem elav, me'oel moed lemor. So just by calling Moshe, that's what enabled the Hashrat Shechina of the Mishkan. אומר המדרש, רבי תנחום בן בר חכינילאי פתח, כתוב בתהילים ק"ג, ברכו השם מלאכיו, גיבורי כוח עושי דברו. So bless Hashem, his angels, with the power, and the ones who were obedient to הקדוש ברוך הוא. ומה הכתוב מדבר? אם בעליונים הכתוב מדבר, if the pasuk here tells about the angels, והלא כבר נאמר, ברכו השם כל צבאיו, so meaning all his army, including all the angels. אינו מדבר אלא בתחתונים. Meaning, it doesn't talk about the angels, but about human beings. עליונים על ידי שהם יכולים לעמוד בתפקידיו של הקדוש ברוך הוא. נאמר, ברכו השם כל צבאיו. אבל תחתונים על ידי שאינם יכולים לעמוד בתפקידיו של הקדוש ברוך הוא, לכן נאמר, ברכו השם מלאכיו ולא כל מלאכיו. So we can expect the angels, since they are like robots, they are just make what HaKadosh Baruch Hu orders them, and they don't have free choice. So we can say from the beginning, Baruch Hashem kol tzva'av, because we know that each and every angel would do what he was ordered to. But while we talk about human beings, they have free choice, and we know that some of them, maybe majority of them, sometimes minority of them, but wouldn't obey to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's why it's written, Malchu Hashem Mal'achav velo kol Malachav. So the first midrash doesn't talk about our parasha bichlal. He explains the Baruch Hashem why it's written Mal'achav and not kol Malachav, and he says that it's related to human beings and not to the malachim. Okay. דבר אחר. נקראו הנביאים מלאכים. הדאו דכתיב, וישלח מלאך ויוציאנו ממצרים. In Parashat Chukat, when Moshe wants to go through Edom, I think, or maybe through Edom, so he talks to Edom, הוא אומר, כה אמר אחיך ישראל, and he tells him about the history, הקדוש ברוך הוא has sent an angel, and took it out of מצרים. וכי מלאך השם היה, ולא משה היה, ולמה קורא אותו מלאך? It's actually related to הגדה של פסח. In a month, that it's written, אני ולא מלאך, כן? הקדוש ברוך הוא says that in מצרים, it was just me and not מלאך. So here it's like לכאורה אסתירה, it's written וישלח מלאך ויוציאנו ממצרים, but the Midrash deals with another problem, it's what was Moshe, so explicitly, why don't you call him Moshe? אלא מכאן שהנביאים נקראים מלאכים. So according to the first Midrash, all human beings can be malachim because they have shlichut in the world. They are sent to the world to do something. Some of them will do it, some of them will die without doing it. But according to the second Midrash, not all the people here are called malachim, just the nevi'im. V'dichvatei, another example, Shoftim Perek Bet, you know that Sefer Shoftim starts with actually the end of Sefer Yehoshua. It tells about the deterioration of Am Yisrael after the death of Yehoshua. And then in the second perek, before we start the third perek with the story of Ehud ben Gera, the second perek is like an introduction to all the book. And we have the system of which the book works. And we have Vayal Malach Hashem min HaGilgal el HaBuchim. We have a story that one of the angels, Chazal, says that it's Pinchas. We'll see it in a minute. And he said a prophecy to Am Yisrael, and he said, I've taken you out of Mitzrayim, and I thought that you would behave nicely in Eretz Israel. You wouldn't worship other gods, and you didn't do that. And because of that, you are punished. And then you have the system that they are punished, and they cry, and the HaKadosh Baruch Hu listens, and sent them a judge, a shofet, and he takes them out of the exile of the specific kings that disturbs them, and then they start again in making sins. So, Vayal Malach Hashem min HaGilgal el HaBuchim. Actually, we could understand that it was just Malach, but he says a prophecy, that's why it's clear to the Midrash, וכי מלאך היה ולא פנחס היה, למה קורא אותו מלאך? So it's interesting that the Midrash takes for granted that it was Pinchas, while it's not written בכלל, it's just an assumption of the Midrash, and it's not a מלאך, אלא אמר רבי שמעון, פנחס בשעה שהייתה רוח הקודש שורה עליו, היו פניו בוערות לפידים. So his face was shining and or lightened like torches, and it's mamash like the vision of Matan Torah. When you see the prophet, when you see the Navi Pinchas when he talks, כשהייתה רוח הקודש שורה עליו, so you see the truth coming out of his face, the torch בוער באש, עולה באש. You know that in other places, Midrash describes the Kohen HaGadol in Yom HaKippurim, that he was panav bo'arot kelapidim, his emet, his representation of Am Yisrael to HaKadosh Baruch Hu was like a lapid. So according to this Midrash, the Malachim are called, and Nevi'im are called Malachim. We see it in Moshe, we see it in Pinchas. V'Rabanan, Amrei, I have another example to see that Navi is a Malach. Where from? אשתו של מנוח. Sorry. אשתו של מנוח. מה הייתה אומרת לו? כן? אשתו של מנוח זה mother of שמשון. Actually, she has no name, even though she's the real man of shape, while her husband is just, some guy goes after her and he doesn't do anything. But he has a name, Manoach, and she's just Eshet Manoach. So it's written, Hine ish Elohim ba'elai. She described to her husband what she had seen. Hine ish Elohim ba'elai, umar'eu kemar'e malach ha'elokim. Kasvurau, why didn't she say mar'eu malach ha'elokim? He's an angel. Kasvura bo shehu navi ve'ino ela malach. So we're not in the topic, I can talk about it, but if you read the Pshat of Perek Yud Gimel, the entrance to Shimshon's story, you see, as I said before, that his mother is a woman of shape. She knows what she does, she understands well what the Malach or HaKadosh Baruch Hu talks to her, while her husband is very moderate. No, you cannot say good things about him. But in Chazal, on the contrary, Chazal somehow balances it and said that she wasn't so good and he wasn't so bad. So here you see that Chazal gives a criticism about her, that she didn't really understand exactly what she saw, because kasvura bo shehu navi ve'ino ela malach. So the Midrash has the same assumption that malach means navi, and then the Midrash is medayek that she saw malach, but she thought, and she describes him as a malach, meaning that a navi is called a malach. Okay. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, מבית אב שלהן נקראו הנביאים מלאכים. We don't need the examples. I know that Nevi'im are called angels. Adau dichtiv, Vayomer Chagai, Malach Hashem, B'malachut Hashem. So when the Navi describes Chagai Navi, one of 13 Nevi'im, so Vayomer Chagai, Malach Hashem, B'malachut Hashem. Malachut meaning in the shlichut. And Vayomer Chagai Malach Hashem, meaning the Shaliach of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, meaning the Navi, because Chagai is Chagai HaNavi. Ha'al korchacha talamed shemibeit av shelahen nikreu haneviim malachim. So you don't need the 3 examples brought above, but you can see from the explicit pasuk telling about Chagai that he is Navi, meaning Malach. Okay, as to now, not related to the parasha. Giborei koach osei dvaro. Now we deal with the seifa of the pasuk. We know that Baruchu Hashem Malachav. Now we understand why it's Malachav and not called Malachav, because we relate to human beings. Now we understand why they are called Malachim. Okay, maybe it's not all the human beings, but just the Malachim. But why are they called Giborei koach osei dvaro? B'ma katuv medaber. It's very relevant to this year, and it's very famous midrash. אמר רבי יצחק, בשומרי שביעית הכתוב מדבר. בנוהג שבעולם, usually, אדם עושה מצווה ליום אחד, לשבת אחד, לחודש אחד, שמא לשאר ימות השנה. Okay, so I've given a shiur about it on Hoshana Rabbah. Shvi'it is not just a difficult mitzvah. It's mamash a mitzvah that from the one side, Umot HaOlam were making laugh of Am Yisrael because of it, because it doesn't make sense, to leave your own parnasa for a year, to don't do anything, just to expect for the bracha of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And from the other side, there was no generation in which the mitzvah was kept entirely, because it's so difficult to fulfill that they found leniencies, they didn't fulfill it. So here Rabbi Yitzchak expresses his התפעלות, expression from Am Yisrael, how they can keep the Shemitah. Usually when you go and notel lulav, so you buy a lulav, it costs you what it costs, but then okay, 5 minutes and it's enough. You go to Bet Knesset. It's not easy. Every day you have to go, but okay, you do it 1 hour in a day, and you're done. Shabbat achat. Okay, so one day in a week you have then you can say it's a menucha, you can stick everything you want to this mitzvah in order that it will be easier for you. But for a year, you don't do anything. It's interesting that what the Midrash takes for granted. Adam oseh mitzvah liyom echad. I can understand that it's Shabbat. The Shabbat achat, when does a person make a mitzvah for 1 week? Maybe milah, that from the birth, the mother is afraid of the milah that would come a week later. I don't know. And lechodesh echad, I'm not sure what it means. Maybe it's pidyon bechor with the same. You can say that the Midrash just says that I can understand a few minutes, few hours, few days, but not a year. But
well, on Pesach we eat matzah for a week, and on Sukkot we live in the sukkah for a week.
Okay, good. And Chodesh? Maybe, the Chodesh of cleaning coming out from at the end of Purim, we have a Chodesh of Shiur till Pesach. I don't know. Maybe the Chodesh of the Chagim. I have no idea. One way is that the Midrash is not medayek. It just gives an exaggeration. Even if it's a month, I can understand, but not. I cannot.
Maybe Pidyon Ben.
That's what I said. If I interpret Shavua Echad, Shabbat Achat like Milah, I think that Chodesh is Pidyon Ben with the same, chashashot that the parents have, that according to Chazal, till a month the baby doesn't exist. So maybe something like this, and then it belongs to the Kohen, and officially it belongs to the Kohen. Maybe something like this. Maybe it's just an exaggeration. Anyway, it's very clear what Midrash wants to say.
Spartans say slichot for a month.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, slichot for a month, or Mar Cheshvan, that we don't have anything for ourselves. Either way, okay. So, or maybe Adar Aleph. So Shema le'sh'ar yemot hashana v'din chami chaklei bayre karmei bayre v'yair ve'arnona v'shatik. So this person takes his ground, his piece of land, and he's mashbit it. He doesn't do anything for a year. He pays the arnona, he pays the taxes. Shatik, yesh lecha gibor gadol mze. So the Midrash is very enthusiastic from Shomrei Shmita. ואם תאמר, אני לא מדבר בשומרי שביעית, how do I know that the Midrash deals that עושי דברו, meaning זה שומרי שביתה, נאמר כאן עושי דברו ונאמר להלן, וזה דבר השמיטה, כן? זה in פרשת ראה, when the Torah deals for their time in שמיטה, so the Torah describes it as זה דבר השמיטה. מה דבר שנאמר להלן בשומרי שביעית הכתוב מדבר, because there it's a מצווה שביעית, אף דבר כאן האומר בשומרי שביעית הכתוב מדבר. Okay, so we understand that the Pasuk tells us about human beings. Actually, we have to say that it's not just Nevi'im. It's according to the former Midrash, that the Pasuk deals with all Am Yisrael, that they are Giborei Koach, because they keep the Shemitah. Osei Dvaro. Now we'll go later to Vayikra el Moshe. עושי דברו, והונה בשם רב אחא אמר, בישראל שעמדו לפני הר סיני, הכתוב מדבר, שהקדימו עשייה לשמיעה, ואמרו, כל אשר דיבר השם נעשה ונשמע, לשמוע בכל דברו. Okay, so we have עושי דברו, לשמוע בכל דברו. זה רב הונה is מדייק, that the main thing in the pasuk is עושי, זה עשייה, is precedes the shmi'ah. Usually a person listens and then he does, but we find one example, one famous example in Har Sinai that Am Yisrael said na'aseh v'nishma, and that's עושי דברו. That's the advantage of מעלה מיוחדת of Am Yisrael. אמר רבי תנחום בר חנילאי. Pay attention that it's the same one who starts the Midrash. Yes, Rabbi Tanchum Bar Chanilai Patach, and now we go back to his drasha. Actually, you can see that he probably said it in drasha, and when the Midrash was edited, So since he dealt with the pasuk in Tehillim, Giborei Koach Osei Dvaro, the Midrash brought all the other options, all the 5 perushim to what exactly is Giborei Koach, what is Osei Dvaro, who the pasuk relate to, and then the pasuk goes back to end the drasha of Rabbi Tanchum Bar Chanilai now, and then we will see the linkage to Vayikra. בנוהג שבעולם, מסוי שקשה לאחד, נוח לשניים, ולשניים נוח לארבע. או שם המסוי שקשה, לסמך ריבו נוח לאחד, okay? So usually, if you have a weight of that it's too much for you, so you tell a friend, please help me, and you take it with him. If it's too much for both of you, you take 4 people and you carry it. But here, you have 600,000 people standing in front of our Sinai and say that it's too much for us. כל ישראל עומדים לפני הר סיני ואומרים, what we see in פרשת עקב, אם יוספים אנחנו לשמוע את הקול הזה, ומתנו. They tell Moshe, please stop it. We cannot stand it. If we're about to hear it one more, we all die. ומשה שומע כל הדיבור עצמו וחיה, so it's like a burden that they cannot take it on their shoulders, they cannot, they suffer from the השראת שכינה, it's too much. And even though Moshe, what do they say? שמע, דבר אתה ונשמע, ואל ידבר עמנו פן נמות. You will talk with הקדוש ברוך הוא as our representative, we really believe in you, we don't need all of us. Just stay you with the Kadosh Baruch Hu, you can suffer it. So how is it possible? תהילה דרך שהוא כן, שמכולן לא קרה, אלא למשה, לכך נאמר, ויקרא אל משה. So beautiful, just now at the end of all the מהלך, we understand that עושי דברו is a מעלה of עם ישראל, that they הקדימו נעשה לנשמע, and now, as Rabbi Tanchum says, but we know about Matan Torah that even with the Akdama of Nasa Nishma, it was too complicated to them and not too complicated to Moshe. So we say that Moshe can undertake what Am Yisrael Kulo cannot undertake, and then we understand that in Vayikra el Moshe, the Kri'ah means, what does he want to say? That the Kri'ah to Moshe doesn't mean that he was chosen out of all the people of Am Yisrael. There was a perplexion because Moshe Rabbeinu erected the Mishkan and nothing happened, and it was too foggy and nobody could enter. And then HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, I want to choose Moshe, he would come to me, and then everything will start working. No, it's not just the choice of Moshe, it's the burden of Moshe to go to a place filled with Hashrat Shechina is a burden, something that all of them cannot undertake. And Moshe is not just chosen, he has to undertake the responsibility to get into the Kodesh HaKodashim, not the Kodesh HaKodashim, to get into the Mishkan, sorry. It's like Kohen Gadol in Yom Kippurim. It's not just that he is the representative, is chosen out of all Am Yisrael. It's a lot of achrayut, and we know that they died, and if they weren't okay. So he is chosen to represent everybody, and so is Moshe. He takes all the burden of a human being to get into a place filled with Hashrat Shechina, and somehow, he doesn't know how, but it's probably because of the Kriya El Moshe itself. The Kriya enables Moshe to enter and to not to suffer from the too much voltage that it is of Kedusha. But the Midrash doesn't relate to it. The Midrash just says that Moshe did what nobody else could do. Okay, that's what the Ma'ala of Moshe. So Vayikra Moshe is not just a continuation of the end of Parashat Pkudei, saying how he was able to start the whole Ma'ala. The Vayikra Moshe says his whole Ma'ala, stresses out his own Ma'ala. Rabbi Abahu Patach. Yeah, we have in Hosea Yudaled, I think it's a part of the Haftarah, yes it is, of Shuva Israel, that we read on Shabbat Shuva. רבי אבאו פתח, כתוב בספר הושע, ישובו יושבי בצילו, יחיו דגן ויפרחו כגפן. So the people were sat in the shade of HaKadosh Baruch Hu will come back and they'll grow grains of wheat and ויפרחו, they'll blossom like vinegar, like vine. Okay, גפן. ישובו יושבי בצילו, who are the people sitting in the shade of HaKadosh Baruch Hu? אלה הגרים, you know, the underdogs, the people who were less significant, the people who were poorer than the others, שבאים וחסין בצילו של הקדוש ברוך הוא. יחיו דגן, so what does it mean? Just that they'll have a blossom and the all fields will be fruitful? No. נעשו עיקר כישראל, כמה דתימר, דגן בחורים ותירוש ינובב בתולות. So דגן means the main things that you eat, the main the bread, על הלחם יחיה האדם. So יחיו דגן meaning that they'll become out of secondary populations, they'll become the main one, they'll become like עם ישראל. ויפרחו חגפן, כמה דתימר גפן ממצרים תסיע תגרש גויים ותתאיה. So the Midrash doesn't explain it like about a blossom and successful fruits and yevul from the field. No, meaning that the people, the Hosea tells that the gerim, they are now secondary and on the side of the way, they'll come and be one of the main, like Am Yisrael. So Gefen doesn't mean Gefen literally, but it means Am Yisrael. דבר אחר, יחיו דגן בתלמוד ויפרחו כגפן בהגדה. So according to Rabbi Abahu's second Perush, it's not related to how the gerim become an ikar, become main, but how they succeed in limud Torah. So you know that Chazal a lot of times take all the, actually if you look in the Tanakh, you don't find limud Torah as the main thing. When the Nevi'im talk to Am Yisrael, they always talk about being okay to the Yatomim, being okay to the Gerim, taking care of the Almanot. Yes, but in Chazal changed it after the Churban of Beit HaMikdash to the main thing of Limud Torah. So here again, they say, what do the Gerim would do? I think that the Davar Acher is related to the Gerim as well, because it's the same Rabbi Abahu, and he understands just Yechayu Dagan ve'yifrechu chagefen. He doesn't explain again the Yashuvu Yoshve Betzilo. So I think that it's a continuation, and he still thinks that it relates to the Gerim. Yechayu Dagan beTalmud ve'yifrechu chagefen ba'agada. So when you talk about the Talmud, the halachot, here you see the difference between halacha and agadah. The halacha is the main basar, the main thing that you deal with. Because if you just learn machshove, you learn philosophy, it's very nice, but you feel like you don't have the main thing of Judaism. For Judaism, you have to really know the sugiyot in the Gemara, the halachot. That's a yechayu dagan. That's a bread that makes you live. That yechayu, it makes you live. V'yifrechu chagefen, the Agadah, if you learn the Agadah, it's very nice. It gives you the blossom, it gives you the good feeling of flowers, of what gives you a reason to live, not the living itself. The living itself is the halacha, the ikar. The meaning for the living is the Agadah. So here you have a nice difference between a Talmud and Agadah. Okay, not related to us at all. Zichro keyan levanon. Now the pasuk goes to the end of the pasuk. Yeshuvu yishve betzilo yechayu dagan v'yifrechu chagafen. Zichro keyan levanon. So their memory is like the wine of Lebanon. אמר הקדוש ברוך הוא, חביב עלי שמותם של גרים, כיין נסך שקרב לפניי על גבי המזבח. So you know that Lebanon in Chazal, meaning בית המקדש, פתח לבנון דלתך, כן, Chazal said about בית המקדש, how its doors were opened to greet Nebuchadnezzar. So זכרו of whom? Of the Geirim are like, the memory of the Geirim is like yain that קרב על גבי המזבח. They are very חביבים. למה נקרא שמו לבנון? So Midrash says, על שם ההר הטוב הזה והלבנון. Okay? when Moshe Rabbeinu sees all of Eretz Israel, so he sees the הר הטוב הזה והלבנון. So Chazal understand that he saw the הר המוריה in Yerushalayim from East Jordan, and he saw the Lebanon, the בית המקדש. תני רב שמעון בר יוחאי. למה נקרא שמו לבנון? So sometimes we could think that Lebanon is the country of the Arazim, Arzei HaLevanon. Yes, cedars. And sometimes Beit HaMikdash is like a tall building, beautiful building that gives the ga'ava of Lebanon. But here, Rab Shimon Bar Yochai has another interpretation, and it's very interesting, I'll tell you why. שמלבין עוונותיהם של ישראל כשלג. הדאו דכתיב אם יהיו חטאיכם כשנים כשלג ילבינו, אם יעדימו כתולה כצמר יהיו. Why I think it's interesting? Because Rab Shimon Bar Yochai wasn't such a Reb Levi Yitzchak Mibardichev. If you know the story of his duration in the cave, in the Me'ara, in the Shabbat, Daf Lamed Gimel, that he escaped from the Romans, and when he got out of the Me'ara, he saw people sinning, and he saw people not learning, and he was very angry at them. Says Oskim b'chayei sha'ah. How is it possible? And he was so angry that Kadosh Baruch Hu told him, go back to the cave. After another year, he stayed 12 years at the beginning and another year at the end. He came actually like a sheep, like with a nice attitude towards the sinners, towards Reshoim, towards all of Am Yisrael. And here you can see somehow a piece of saying how he was changed after the going out of the Me'ara. So he relates to Beit HaMikdash, not that you could expect him as a place that the Torah comes out of it, just Torah, just pure korbanot, pure avodat Hashem. No, he says no. Beit HaMikdash deals with the soft kapore, with the soft tshuva. The time Israel, even though they're sinners, they can come to Beit HaMikdash, to the Lebanon, and it makes their sins white. שמלבין עוונותיהם של ישראל כשלג, הדאו דכתיב, אם יהיו חטאיכם כשנים, if your sins be like the red, like the deep red, כשלג ילבין, it will come like the snow, white, ואם יאדימו כתולה, כצמר יהיו. So, okay, as to now, we understand the whole posuk in Hosea, ישוב וישבו בצילו, גרים, and the learning, the becoming the main part, and זכרו כנבן, הקדוש ברוך הוא loves the גרים, like the wine in בית המקדש. אבל תביאו מי אמר, על שם שכל לבבות שמחים בו. Okay, so it's interesting, the Lebanon doesn't relate the cedars, the Lebanon doesn't relate the ליבון, מלבין עוונותיהם של ישראל, one of the מלאכות on Shabbat is ליבון, making it clean, so no. But the Lebanon means the kitzur of levav. We know that heart, lev, in Hebrew sometimes can be interpreted as the shoresh levav, leamet bet bet, and the two bet are swallowed in one, and then you have lev. So that's why it's called leva non. What does it mean, non? Non is just suffix in English. It's like, you know, something that you add to the word and makes it. Let's say that I say katan in Hebrew, so katan is short. If I say ktantan, it means shorter than short. So sometimes you add on vav nun sofit to the main word, and the main word is lavan or lev, according to Rav Tavium. Rabbanan Amrei. על שם והיו עיניי וליבי שם כל הימים. So in תפילת שלמה and ההבטחות of הקדוש ברוך הוא, how the בית המקדש be, so הקדוש ברוך הוא promises that והיו עיניי וליבי שם כל הימים, meaning that all my eyes and heart be concentrated in בית המקדש. So we can understand that the Lebanon either means the Lebanon cedars or libun or levav or lev. Okay, so we can understand all the posuk, but we don't know what's a relation, and we have to say, since the midrash is finished and the midrash didn't say anything about the relation, that here the midrash just deals, because till now we had the construction of the Beit HaMikdash. Now the midrash understands that the Vayikra El Moshe is the real construction. From now on it will operate, and from now on we look at the Mikdash as what it is. That's why the midrash here deals, the first midrash dealt with the first milah, the choice of Moshe, and we understood that it's not a choice, it's a responsibility. But the second midrash deals just with a pure ma'ala of Beit HaMikdash, now constructed, now working, now open to the public. Okay, the third midrash, let's go. סימון בשם רבי יהושע בן לוי ורב חמא אבוה דרבי יהושע בשם רב אמרי. לא ניתן דברי הימים אלא להידרש. You know that we have the Sefer of דברי הימים, and if it's very boring book, because if you look, you just have the names, so Rabbi Simon says no, it's not just a list of names, it's a book full of drashot. Why? If you learn the beginning of Sefer Shmot, you see that Bat Paro going to take Moshe Rabbeinu out of the Nile. We don't know what her name is. The name is mentioned in Divrei Yamim Aleph in Perek Dalet. Let's see the whole parasha. It's written there, V'ishto hayehudiyah yalda et Yered Avigdor v'chulei. So I think it relates to Amram, the son of Kehat. Kehat is the son of Levi, the son of Yaakov. So we have fourth generation of Yaakov, Levi, Kehat, Amram, the father of Moshe, and his Jewish mother. Okay, the Jewish, you know that the word Jew appears just in late Tanakh, in Sefer Megillat Esther, in Divrei Yamim. We don't find it in Yeshaya or Yirmiyah or all of these. You don't find the Jew. Okay? So Ishto HaYehudiyah Yalda et Yered Avigdor. So we don't know about this person. We don't know him from the Tanakh. V'ishto HaYehudiyah Zo Yochevet, the Midrash says. V'chi meshivto, what does it mean Yehudiyah in the Tanakh? Not the Jew, but from Shevet Yehuda. As I said, the Gemara in Megillah says, Ish Yehudi haya b'Shushan Iberam. What does it mean, Yehudi? So the Gemara understands, since the Gemara is used to the Tanakh Kulo, and the Tanakh doesn't use Yehudi but to a person coming from Shevet Yehuda, so the Gemara understands that Mordechai HaYehudi means that he has come from Shevet Yehuda. And then the Gemara asks, how is it possible he came from Binyamin? The Gemara answers several answers, but Yehudi means from Shevet Yehuda. Just for us, Yehudi means Jewish. וכי שבטו של יהודה הייתה יוכבד? We know who she is. She's משבטו של לוי הייתה. She's one of the 70 people going to מצרים. למה נקרא שמה יהודיה? על שם שהעמידה יהודים בעולם. So the first יהודי in the world, ירידה את ירד, זה משה. So the first יהודי in the world is משה רבינו. Why he is the first יהודי? You can say that after חטא העגל, הקדוש ברוך הוא even tells him to start against the whole nation from Moshe Rabbeinu, and then he is the father of all the Jews. So we see that we have the pattern of all the three avot that are the forefathers of all the Yehudim, but here you see in particular Moshe Rabbeinu as another separate father of all the Yehudim in the world. Yarda et Yered, so we understand that Yered זה Moshe. רב חנין אמר פאפא ורב סימון, רב חנין אמר פאפא אמר, ירד שהוריד את התורה מלמעלה למטה. Okay, so he has an advantage that he was able to take the Torah out of heaven and put it here, put it, interpret it, להנגיש אותה, to make it easy for the people to read, to understand, to tell, to teach. דבר אחר, ירד שהוריד את התורה, את השכינה, מלמעלה למטה. So again, as we saw before, מתן תורה, the torches, and משה רבנו, the נביא, like his face like a torches, and ויקרא, the הורדת שכינה is like מתן תורה. You have the מעלה of עם ישראל, הקדמת נעשה לנשמע, and even though they chose Moshe to represent them, and the same thing happens here. So again, והוריד את השכינה מלמעלה למעלה, here you relate to Torah, here you relate to Shekhinah. So it's the question, what's the big advantage of Moshe, whether the Torah that he brought to Am Yisrael or the Shekhinah. אמר רבי סימון, and ירד, so ירד, according to two perushim, meaning descending. He took the Torah out of heaven and descended it into earth. אמר רבי סימון, אין ירד אלא לשון מלוכה. כמה דכתיב, וירד מים אל ים. דכתיב, כי הוא רודה מכל עבר הנהר. Actually, I don't know why he doesn't quote the pasuk from Parshat Bereshit. הורדו בדגת הים ובעוף השמיים, meaning that you will be the king, you enslave them, you will use fish and the animals to your own needs. Okay, so רדייה means מלוכה, monarchy. So Moshe not only is described by the יכולת, by the ability to take things from up and bring them down, but as a sovereignty. אביגדור, רב הונא בר אחא אמר, מה זה אביגדור? So we know now there is a name, אביגדור, what does it mean? הרבה גודרין עמדו לישראל, וזה היה אביהם של כולם. So the Moshe Rabbeinu's mala is described as a gader, as a fence that helps Am Yisrael not to go too much. Yes, Sviv Har Sinai there was a fence, and enabling everybody to stand and not to go too much. So the same thing was Moshe. He was Magen, he was defender of Am Yisrael. Chever, another name that is mentioned there. שחיבר את הבנים לאביהם שבשמיים. So according to the Midrash, all the names in Divrei Yamim Aleph are not separate kids, not that Ishto Yehudiya gave birth to 5 kids, but no, they're all descriptions of the same Moshe Rabbeinu, not even Aaron, not Miriam, just Moshe Rabbeinu. He was called Avigdor, he was called Yered, and he was called Chever. דבר אחר, Chever, שהעביר הפורענויות מלבוא בעולם. How does it interpret? I don't understand what the Midrash says. I understand what he says, but I don't know how it gets into the word chever. שהעביר, I think what the Midrash does here is the using ayin and chet מתחלפים. That is that chever is like avar, okay? Because hey, ayin and chet, they are אותיות גרוניות that you can switch between them. Sometimes the Midrash does it. Okay, so it's like ever. העביר הפורענויות מלבוא עולם. He took away all the bad things because he prayed for Am Yisrael and he convinced Hashem not to do it. אבי סוחו, שהיה אביהן של נביאים ששוחים ברוח הקודש. So as we know, עסקה, meaning Sarah, that she was socha beruach hakodesh, she was full of ruach hakodesh. The same thing with Avi Socho. Okay? Rabbi Levi Amar leshon raviu. Okay, so the Torah, the Divrei Yamim, uses words from, sometimes we see from Aramaic, here we see from Arabic. Be'aravi korim lenavi sachya. Okay, so Navi is Sachya. That's the same interpretation like this, but with free translation. Yekutiel, הרב לוי ורבי סימה אמר שעשה את הבנים מקווין להבין שבשמיים. So עם ישראל hope just for הקדוש ברוך הוא. אבי זנוח, זה משה, שהיה אב למזניחים, שהזניחום מעבודה זרה, דאוד הכתיב וייזר על פני המים. So Moshe was so angry at העבודה זרה of חטא העגל, וייזר, he ground it and he puts it on the water, so he made עם ישראל not to sin in עבודה זרה anymore. דבר אחר, just let's see if I think we'll stop here because it's too long, so that's a cut. From here you have another interpretation to all the names, so we'll stop here. So we started with the understanding of what is Vayikra is, that the אחריות of Moshe in entering the Mikdash. We kept with the Ma'ala of the Bet HaMikdash, that now the Bet HaMikdash exists, so we have to describe it as Lebanon. And now we go to all the names of Moshe describing the Ma'ala of Moshe, because we understand that once Moshe is responsible and enters the Bet HaMikdash, he has a special Ma'ala. It's not just a technique enabling that he made that we can, Aaron can enter to Bet HaMikdash, but no, from now on, Moshe has another Ma'ala of making the Mishkan. Shavua Tov.
Yeshikova.
בוא תהיה.
Shabbat.
Thank you.
להתראות.